So we've begun the Torah again. The stories, the lessons, the challenges, and the story of Noah, again, with which most of us are very familiar. After what I called, and you heard this from me, the IJS, the intensive Jewish season, we ask, so what happens to us now? And the same question after the story of Noah. What happens after these things that we have committed ourselves to or reheard the stories? There's creation, there's expulsion, or as some of the rabbis refer to it as displacement. There's a flood, and then a rainbow and a covenant, and we begin all over again. After these initial stories that remind us and challenge us again, what happens to us? What happens to our people? What happens to Judaism? Not referring to the number of people who might be here, the quantity of the Jewish community, those who are attending services either in the sanctuary or in our day virtually. Not referring to the numbers, but to who we really are, the quality and extent of what we might call our Jewing. How do I as a rabbi, and how do we as members of the Jewish community continue those values of being Jewish throughout the year? Recently, I was asked in a conversation, even in the presence of a bride and groom who were both Jewish, and all 4 of their parents, and all 8 of their grandparents were Jewish. But as we sat there after the chuppah last week, I was asked once again if I thought Judaism was going to survive. Like Noah must have thought, and he went into the ark. Am I really going to survive? What is this all about? Well, my response to my friends last week was that yes, I thought Judaism would survive if for no other reason than the world, the non-Jewish community would force us to survive. They need us around to pick on us, sometimes to hate us. And the question is not, will we survive? It is rather, I believe, will we flourish? Or what happens now as we begin again? My friends, I not only believe that Judaism will blossom and continue, I know that it will. And let me explain to you, as I tried to my friends last week, why I'm so confident of our survival and of our well-being, despite the threats around us, even in a progressive world. First, it's time for those of us who see Judaism flourishing in America to reject what I call the accent of Judaism. And I'm as guilty as anyone else with this. What's the accent of Judaism? You remember the story of the elderly woman at the bus stop who said to the kind gentleman next to her, "Du redest Yiddish?" "Yeah." "Good. What time is it?" So here's someone who thinks that she's living Jewishly by adding an accent, when what she's really doing is living only a slightly modified, secular, ordinary American life. But I hope that you know that even when I am guilty of that kind of mistake, if you will, or perhaps it's humorous, there's more to Judaism than just an accent. There's more to being part of the Jewish family and community than mere inflection and nuance and idiom. Judaism is alive and well long after Noah, and even more recently after our IJS, and it will continue to thrive, I believe, because of many factors, some inverse and negative, as I mentioned, but also because of some very beautiful positive manifestations of our outlook on life, some of which we learn from the story of Noah. Judaism sanctifies the ordinary. We try to find holiness in the everyday, in our meals, in our food. Everyone eats. Everyone takes eating seriously. Indeed, we get very emotional about eating and not eating. But in Jewish life, the material act of eating can be transformed into a spiritual act by the blessing, by the brachot, by the family joining together, whether it's at the same table or on Zoom. Who among us doesn't remember a Seder or a Shabbat dinner, which, except for the rabbis who are on shpilkas before the service, should be a time of relaxation and family sharing? I'm sorry, that's the rabbi and the president before the service. Judaism is alive and well today and will continue to provide inspiration to millions because we have chosen certain unique individuals and characteristics as role models for ourselves and for our children. Noach ish tzaddik v'tamim haya b'dorotav. Noah was singled out as righteous and upright in his generation, and that's what we try to be. No matter what the values of the generation around us, we try to live lives of holiness. At Hanukkah time, we speak of Judah Maccabee, the hero of the Hasmonean revolt. Judah was so skilled a military commander, his tactics were so brilliant that his statue stands in the Military Hall of Fame at West Point. Did you know that? Do we teach our children that? No. We teach them that Judah Maccabee was famous because he and his band remained loyal to the Jewish way of life, because they resisted forces of oppression and of assimilation. We could have it the other way. We could impress upon our children the fact that Judah's brilliance is recognized even at West Point, but that's not our Jewish mode. We'd rather be concerned with the heroism and, sadly but proudly, with the martyrdom of Jews as active, thinking, and courageous men and women. We speak of King David in the Bible, not as the great empire builder, but as the supposed author of the beautiful Psalms, Tehillim, as a poet, a musician, and as the ancestor of the Messiah. And we do not deny that David had faults and made mistakes. He was human. Elie Wiesel, the late chronicler of the Holocaust, tells this poignant story. When his concentration camp was liberated in the spring of 1945, all the Russian prisoners raced into town and stole weapons from the German troops and started shooting every civilian in sight. The Jews, however, when the camp gates were opened, raced into town and started a desperate effort to locate their relatives. Judaism is alive and well because, my friends, Jews live more than other people. I have no other way to explain it. We live with a higher intensity. We spend more of our time in the upper registers of our emotions. We seldom let even the most insignificant event go by without some action or reaction, some word, some gesture. The point has been made that contemporary Jewish authors have their Jewish characters get excited about relatively small things, whereas non-Jewish authors write about murder and world cataclysm. Our literature talks about children dropping out of college or having arguments with their parents, relatively small things. Many of you may have proven my point by reacting, what's he talking about? What's so small about dropping out of college? But if you look objectively at the Jewish family, You get the impression that we Jews don't have small problems. We only have crises. Everything is approached with such great emotional intensity because life is so special. Life is so dear. Life is so holy to us. This is the Jewish lifestyle, a concern for small everyday issues for all of life, making the most mundane act into an act of sanctification, of beauty. It's healthy, it's good. It provides excellent modeling for the younger Jews to emulate the next generation. Can you imagine Plato or Aristotle getting angry because some widow was being cheated or because some family was worshiping an idol? We imagine Noah responding immediately when God says, save not only your family, but save each species of my creatures. Amos and Isaiah were outraged when those things, the little small things, not because the prophets were small-minded, petty men, but because they were Jewish. They cared deeply about people, about the world, even as they cared about ideas. So this is a realization which answers for us why Judaism is alive and well in my mind. We are a small people, but we're a very large family. What happens to each of us matters to all of us. The rabbis say, Kol Yisrael Arivim Zeh Lazeh. Each member of the Israelite people is responsible and cares about each other. When something happens to us, good or bad, we feel that it's important the whole Jewish community agrees and rises up and acts. There's a magnificent modern proverb by my friend Danny Siegel. He says, if you're waiting for the Messiah and he tarries, look at the person sitting next to you and reach out to that person. Figuratively, literally, physically, symbolically. Give that person a helping hand. Give that person a smile, a hug, a recognition of who he or she really is. And then Danny Siegel says, if the Messiah continues to tarry, it won't even matter. Why do we live with such intensity? Why do we live at the top of our emotions, laughing more and crying more and arguing more than other people? Why did Noah respond as a righteous and just man? Because we care. Because we are not ashamed of feeling. Because we are not afraid of showing our children and the generations to come what it means to truly live. In this way, with this active, dynamic, conscientious Jewing, let us continue to live after we ask the question, what happens now? Amen.